One of the most infamous serial killer couples in modern British history, Fred and Rosemary West, terrorized Gloucestershire for years. They lured young women, predominantly teenage girls, into their home, where the victims were subjected to horrific sexual violence and kept bound in the cellar before being murdered. The couple concealed the remains of their victims under the floorboards of their basement and within their garden. The British press eventually dubbed their residence the House of Horrors. This is one of the most revolting couples in history, yet they aren't as widely known as other serial killers from the UK. Subscribe to my channel, we have many more chilling stories coming up. Violence was an ingrained part of the West's domestic life, extending beyond their crimes against strangers to their own children. In a disturbing display of family dysfunction, Rosemary's father frequently visited to engage in sexual acts with his daughter, while Fred was not only aware of the abuse, but often spectated. Rosemary West, born Rosemary Letts in 1953. Her life began under grim circumstances. While pregnant with her, Rose's mother suffered from severe depression and underwent electroconvulsive therapy, which may have caused prenatal trauma. Her father was a violent paranoid schizophrenic who eventually forced her mother, Daisy, to flee, taking Rose with her. Growing up, Rose was a moody adolescent and, much like Fred, struggled significantly in school. Whether genetics and her father's paranoid schizophrenia influenced the horrors they would later commit is a debatable question. Likewise, the impact of their poor school performance on future events remains a subject of discussion, but from my perspective, the answer is yes. Fred West, born in 1941 into a large, impoverished family, Fred was reportedly his mother's favorite. He claimed his father had incestuous relationships with his sisters, and rumors suggested his mother, Daisy, molested him from a young age, though Fred denied these claims. A school dropout who became a farm laborer, Fred's life was shaped by low intelligence, a dysfunctional upbringing, and 2 severe head injuries. At 17, he suffered a major head trauma in a motorcycle accident, following an earlier fall from a fire escape at a youth club. Before meeting Rosemary, Fred was married to Rena Costello, a Scottish woman who worked as a prostitute. While Rena was pregnant with his child, Fred began an affair with Anna McFall. When McFall became pregnant and demanded he divorce Rena to marry her, Fred chose to murder her and the unborn child instead. And this character had an absolutely traumatizing childhood, just like the majority of serial killers. Exhausted by Fred's sadistic sexual demands, Rena eventually left, leaving the children in his care. In 1968, while still technically married to Costello, the 27-year-old Fred met Rosemary on her 15th birthday. They moved in together a year later. In 1970, Rosemary gave birth to their first daughter, Heather Ann, who was raised alongside 2 girls from Fred's previous marriage. During a brief period when Fred was imprisoned for theft, Rosemary allegedly murdered one of her stepdaughters. When the biological mother, Rena Costello, arrived to reclaim her children, she too disappeared. The partnership in crime. The couple officially married in 1972. The same year, their daughter May was born. Fred actively encouraged Rosemary to work as a prostitute. Over time, Rosemary had 7 children, not all fathered by Fred. To accommodate their lifestyle, they moved to a larger house where Fred renovated a room specifically for Rosemary's sex work. The room featured peepholes for Fred to watch, and they even used a red light as a signal to warn their children when mother was busy. In 1972, the Wests hired 17-year-old Caroline Roberts as a nanny. The couple held her captive overnight, bound her with tape, and raped her. Although Caroline escaped and reported them, Fred successfully convinced the court that the encounter was consensual. They were merely fined £50 for indecent behavior. Following this, the pair decided never to leave witnesses alive again. Their victims were typically women under 25, often lured with offers of nanny work, only to be tortured for days and eventually strangled. While murdering young women, Fred also systematically abused his daughter from his first marriage, Anne-Marie West. After Anne-Marie escaped, Fred turned his predatory focus toward his and Rosemary's eldest daughter, Heather Ann. When Heather began complaining to friends about her parents' treatment, the Wests decided to kill her. Her disappearance, Combined with the couple's inconsistent stories and their frequent threats to the other children telling them they would end up buried in the yard like Heather if they misbehaved eventually led to their downfall. The arrest and aftermath. In May 1992, Fred was caught filming the abuse of another of his 7 daughters. After the girl confided in friends, the police launched an investigation on August 6, 1992. Fred eventually confessed, naming Rosemary as his accomplice. As police looked into Heather's disappearance, the children's testimonies about the buried in the yard threats provided enough evidence for a search warrant. Human remains were discovered in the basement and garden the very next day. Fred West was charged with 12 murders, but committed suicide in his cell before the trial concluded. Rosemary was convicted of 10 murders and sentenced to life in prison, where she remains to this day. The story of the West serves as a chilling reminder of how deep-seated trauma and a cycle of domestic violence can breed monsters. Their house of horrors on Cromwell Street has since been demolished, but the scars they left on the families of their victims and the collective memory of Britain remain forever. It is a stark example of how evil can hide behind the most ordinary-looking doors, thriving in silence until it's too late.